Hey Jackie, how's it going? So I want to go over how we kind of suggested to set up your Monday structure to basically make it scalable, right, according to your actual processes or your license level, etc. So I'm just going to go over this board map where basically what we intend to do is when a deal is closed in HubSpot, right, an item is created on the overview board. I'm planning out this overview board so that it can have a column where maybe depending on the service that you close through HubSpot, we can condition like a different project task set. So we have like three different service types, right, that carry a different set of tasks each. Not a problem there. And then what I suggest is having this overview, right? So once a deal is created in HubSpot, the client overview is created on the an item is created on this overview board, which will manage the whole project. Tasks linked to this project will be connected to this overview board as well from an actual database. So essentially, in this database, you would hold a task set per service type that you have. These tasks will have kind of like their days duration and days due, just so we can get automated project tasks, right, according to reference day zero, right? So for example, your day zero is your start date, right? So we would populate all of those tasks from the start date. So as soon as you put in the project start date here, right, these task sets and will all populate automatically, including and on the tasks, right? Each task has an option to basically assign the task to a tech team. So since we're gonna internally manage the workflow on this task board, I suggested that we have another separate board for the tech team. Thinking about that, probably making you can have a I don't know, a different tech team in the future, right? And you would like to kind of like separate those tasks, to create multiple tech team tasks if as required. And then basically when you send out a task or assign a task to a tech team, that task will travel over to the tech team board. And the same will happen if you assign that task to a partner. Partners will have their board. Right now you have only one partner, right? If you at any chance by any chance think that you might have another partner in the future, we can create another board for that partner. Then this project task database, as I said, it contains a set of tasks according to your service type. The reason why we create a database and work with a database is so you can manipulate this information. So if you want to change the task set for a certain service type, you can do that. And if you want to change, for example, the day's duration or days due from any task, you can do that. And the automation will work dynamically for those values instead of having to recur to our team to edit any of the task plan per service. And then we'll also have a client task board. This client task board, since we'll have one client task board per client and our current Monday account is limited on a pro license to 20 items connected to one only board, this connection won't be direct. If there's any task for the client, there won't be a direct connection here to the project task board. And the reason is because we need each client to have their own task board, right? So if by any chance you need any task delegated to the client, you can do it from the project task board, and the project task board will from here you will basically create a task on the client task board, or maybe this client task board can have just like standard client tasks, right? It really can be whatever we want it to be, as far as how we want to populate information on this client task board and when we want to do it. We can populate a set of tasks like predeterminedly for the project, and then maybe we can ad hoc as well, just create tasks from on this client task board from the overview or from the task board. And then connected to the overview, we have the invoicing board where basically we can automate any recurring invoices. So for example, like we can have a button so you can manually create an invoice, or we can have an automation where basically we tell the system like, hey, invoice this person every 15 days or every month for this amount of money. And then essentially on a first instance, right, this invoice will be created the invoice board in Monday, and we can potentially integrate that into Sage. That way we generate the actual document in Sage. We bring that document back over to Monday, and then Monday can send it out to the client directly. And I think that will be a very nice functionality as well, just so you can basically keep on top of your invoices by tracking the statuses of the invoices in this board rather than having to generate them and send them over and do the follow-up in a decentralized way, like through email to each client or however you manage it at this point. And then here are some overview dashboards that we would create basically to manage the workload. We can have a projected workload. We can have actual like invested workload, basically so you keep track of where your team is investing time. And we can also have like project level KPIs, and we can also have overview KPIs. So task level KPIs, sorry, and overview KPIs. That's on the dashboard side. Okay, so essentially how this would look like on Monday, we can go here, and here, as you see, we have all of the different boards. So essentially I created an extra board for client contacts. Essentially you would connect, right? The client contact would be connected to the client overview. And then here on the client overview, you would have a general project status. I know you have very determined phases on your project status. So basically we could mimic these phases and how they happen and how they are triggered along the project. A cool thing here is that we can potentially automate the task timelines according to the phase change. So for example, like if you tell like hey, some of my clients take some more time on onboarding to answer questions back and everything, so I wouldn't like to populate the full project timeline ahead of time, but I would probably like to populate the task set according to the phase that I'm in. So maybe this, instead of a project status, it can be like project phase, right? And then we can have onboarding. So when this status is in onboarding, we only create the specific tasks for onboarding. And then when it goes to the next phase, it creates the task for the next phase, and so on and so forth. So essentially, when you move these statuses or phases, right, you would have task sets being created here. All of the tasks will be connected to this status column, where you can basically see what tasks are in progress, what tasks haven't been really started yet, and have an overview of what the task set is on this board level if you want it. And then we have the invoices board also connected here, which will aggregate the total invoices, so you can see how much you have invoiced a specific client. Now on the detail view, basically on the detail view, what we have is, so initially we have three boards, connected to this task board. So essentially we would have like kind of like the central tasks for the client, the ones you populate according to your project plan. And then we would have tech team tasks and partner tasks board, where essentially like any task that you have in your project, you can basically assign to the tech team. And what that will do is basically create an item here on the tech team tasks and basically show that task in this view. And then we can do the same with the partners. We can also kind of like separate this project task board, like the internal ones, from the partner and tech team tasks in a different like widget if you would like. This is something that we can basically iterate as per your preferences. And then this other widget here is basically project information. So if you would like any like overview project information to show here, you might see that here. And then, as I said, these timelines will all populate automatically when we basically trigger the project, and we can have like different dates start per phase of the project, and that way like the processes that come after this one can have their task set populated when you define that you have gone into that next phase. Okay, so essentially this is the task management, and then we have invoices and client management. So here we have this widget where we can email a client from here. Maybe you won't use this because you're already using HubSpot CRM, but I figured out maybe we can just like have it here if you want to keep track of what you have communicated with the client. Remember, this is directly connected to your Gmail, so regardless you send the emails from your Gmail or HubSpot, these would be tracked here in the Monday CRM, as long as the client of like related to this account has an email on the contact table. And then here you would keep track of all of the invoices. As I said, the invoices can be created automatically recurring, or maybe the overview we can have an item, a column that says like create invoice manually or something like that. And we can also create invoices manually. And as I said, those invoices will show here. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. As I said, the project task board, we can have a separate project. We will have a unique project task board for all of the different projects, but essentially these tasks are connected to a client. So we can also group by client. Like there's so many things we can do here actually. So we can group by client. So you see clients assigned to client one, tasks assigned to client one and client two, or maybe we can group by project phase, and then we can filter out by client, right? So that way you can see like the specific task set within the phases, using the phases as groups on the board. You can see it by like per client. You see what I mean? So there's a bunch of things we can do here, just like on generating views and everything. We can even generate like a macro Gantt for like seeing every task for every project in one view. We can filter that by project. We can create workload view, where essentially you would see how available or occupied your team is when managing basically your team's workload, right? So there's a bunch of things we can do. I mean, this is a really mock-up setup, but I think it can give you a good idea of what things you can manage and how you can manage them across your different clients and projects. So yeah, that's basically it. Let me know what you think, and we can implement all of these feedback into the project. I have kind of like estimated what we have to do to make this all functional and automated and completely integrated into your processes. So first of all is basically getting the feedback from the actual boards and the views and how they are set up, and creating new columns if needed according to your KPIs or your actual process, like actually iterating this board's structure as it is now. Then automating the task and timeline creation. So essentially, like, how would you like those tasks to be automated? Again, is it just like a reference date when the project started, or would you like to have each phase trigger on that specific date, a new task set with that start date criteria? So essentially, do you want the start date criteria at the phase level, or do you want it at the project level? Do you want to populate all of the timeline of the whole project automatically, or would you rather do it by phases, right? So that's essentially what we will do here. Then assigning tasks to partner and tech team or to a tech team. So essentially it's making those buttons functional and having maybe the items that you assign to the tech team, right, kind of like connect back to the project tasks board. That way, like maybe when the tech team kind of like finishes out a task, that reflects back into your project board. Then integrating HubSpot to trigger an item created on client overview. This is basically just like setting up this automation. So every time you close a project, you get that item created. And then we also have the recurring invoice creation automation. So essentially you establish a cadence on how often you want to create the invoices, and then essentially, right, this invoice would be created and sent out automatically to the client, as long as we have the Sage integration, right? When an invoice is created on our Monday invoices board, that automatically triggers an invoice to be created in Sage and sent over to the client, and then that PDF document just like brought back into Monday. Here we can also send out like maybe like some automations to kind of like remind the client on the pending charge, right? And maybe we can also integrate that payment, right, to flag the invoice paid as paid in Monday, right? So essentially that's all about this integration. Since we have to, like maybe push line items into that invoice, that's why this integration takes a couple hours, 8 hours. And then we'll also configure a dashboard to configure overview, like view of KPIs, tasks, workload, etc. And then we'll have a client form configuration just for the ticket submission part. If you already have that with HubSpot, we can integrate this ticket group or board. We need to find if it's going to be a board or group, but basically integrate that to the HubSpot pipeline that you're currently using to manage these tickets, just so we can keep in Monday an overview of how those tickets are going. Maybe it can be a separate board, and that ticket might be kind of like broken down into tasks into the project board. Like there's a bunch we can do there, and basically explore the best workflow to get those tickets from submission into completion. So, and then we will have a feedback around all of these processes, and we should include, apart from the feedback processing and an update from the project plan, we must include here basically feedback implementation, where we would use this time to gather feedback from all of these automations and integrations and basically implement them into the system. Okay, so we would be looking at a total of around like 33 hours for this scope, right? So it would be 27 plus 6 hours. And then for this initial phase, we had an estimate of 5 hours. It's been more than that to actually create the project, but no worries about those 2 additional hours. We can put those 2 additional hours because we imagined that this would take 5 hours total. We can scope that into this 33 hours, so it will be a total of 35 hours. And we have an hourly rate with you guys of $55. So that would bring us to a total of $1,925 for this full implementation. And well, the 5 hours right from the initial consultation are apart from that. But yeah, let me know if you have any doubts about this, the scope, the project itself, and we would be looking to kick this off with you as soon as possible, so we can get that, like into our project queue, and you can have the quickest output for this implementation, which would probably be around 2 weeks or so with validation and everything. So yeah, Let me know what you think about the whole proposal, and looking forward to implement this for you as well. Thank you so much for your attention, and talk soon. Hey Jackie, how's it going? So here I wanted to comment about why we need to basically use CRM to schedule this, sorry, to set up this. Hey Jackie, how's it going? So I just wanted to get into detail on why we need CRM. And the main reason is because we want to manage more than 20 projects at the same time. So if we want to manage more than 20 projects at the same time, we cannot connect 20 different boards so more than 20 different boards for 20 different clients into an overview with the current license, right? We're stuck at 20 with the current license. So the way we suggest to override this is by using the detail views that we have in CRM, which we don't have in work management, right? So essentially, if we check in work management, right, and you open any item in work management, okay, and you open the item, you see you get this right hand detail view, this right hand widget, which is not, you don't have that much space to basically manage the all of the detail that you need from that specific client. So this small, like right hand view that opens up here is just like much more comfortable and functional if we go into CRM and we see that detail view. Here we go to client overview, right, and then we have the ability to open up the detail view, right, and you have a full view of the details, right, and then you can connect multiple boards to this view, right, and overall have, also have this client communication functionality, which is proper from CRM. So essentially, and then every other process that can be managed in work management, um, can be management in CRM as well. So it's basically just a matter of comfort and user experience, just to be able to see the full thing, like the full view on this very big detail view, rather than having that reduced detail view that work management offers. So that's basically a reason why I would suggest we move to CRM. But I mean, it's not impossible to set it up in work management. It's just our recommendation. We can actually set it up in work management, but with that limited detail, there's a lot that we can't do. So that's a main reason. And then about Zapier costs, the Zapier account that we would be probably using would be a 2000 SAP account, because you're creating a lot of tasks and you're doing a lot of automations with this proposed setup. So I would say like 2000 SAP. Let me just show you the pricing for a 2000 SAP account. Sorry. Ahorita estamos trabajando en Google Calendar. So, cumple las mismas funciones que Calendar. Okay, so essentially, well, this client uses a 20K SAP account, but 2000 SAP account, pay yearly is like 49 per month, and then paid monthly is like 73. So um, I mean, that's probably what you will need, depending on your consumption. If we generate more automations, we would then for sure consume more SAPs. But this is just like a reference price. If we go all the way to 5K, we would be paying around like $133 per month. So yeah, that's pretty much the proposal. Here is our proposed project plan, right? So you can check it out. I haven't invited you, so I'll invite you so you can check out this project plan directly here. And yep, let me know what you think about everything, and we'll keep communication. Thank you so much, and take care.